quiet your mind. Ever since the Earth has circled the sun, there have been fantastic tales of wonder and mystery that the faint of heart dare not discuss. But 3 brave, uninformed souls have the brass to tackle every extraordinary happenstance, from the modern age to the dawn of Mantis.
Welcome to Dawn of Mantis, true crimes, mysteries, and more. I'm Ivan with Joe and Sam at the, I wanted to say at the con or at the helm, but that none of those work. At the board. He's at the board.
Yeah.
Oh, as always.
I like
he's at the helm.
Helm is a little more Star Trek-ish.
Yeah. Sam, photon torpedoes. Now, engage.
Shields at 90%. Sir, they're fading fast.
Another podcast is attacking. Shields up. Anyway, I hope everyone's doing great tonight. That kind of went off the rails, so let's just go with it.
Sure.
Joe, we just did a short episode, but let's reiterate what we were just saying in the short episode.
My brothers, my friends, my comrades, we have just celebrated, or about to celebrate, our 5-year anniversary.
5 years.
5 years of Dawn of Mantis.
Done very few things for 5 years.
No, neither have I. We started out in a cramped upstairs bedroom in my old farmhouse I used to live in with one little table and 2 cheap microphones sticking out of it.
I forgot about that until you said that earlier.
Yep.
Yeah.
Actually,
11 episodes.
11 episodes up there. And then we worked on a shed that I had, like a 10 by 12 foot shed.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of tried to soundproof it and did some stuff in there and kind of had a cool looking little miniature studio. Cellar Top Studios is what we call it.
Yeah, that's right.
That was generous.
Yeah. That will be a museum one of these days.
And
have
now,
a little plaque out with their busts on it or whatever. Here's where it all started.
Oh, get a picture. And then, I got to give credit to you, Ivan. It was completely your idea. I remember the day that you said, because, after shows, and Sam would be running sound for my band, we were playing shows, and then for like 2 or 3 shows in a row afterwards, the 3 of us would gather together in the green room, and we would chill out and talk for like an hour. And then you were just like, the other day after that, you were like, let's call Sam and see if he wants in on this.
Well, that's where I got the idea, because it was like, this could be the podcast. This is the 3rd person we were looking for, and we didn't even know it.
Yes.
So that's kind of where it started kicking around in my brain. I figured for sure he'd say no, but he said yes.
He said yes. You are the snake to my mongoose, or the mongoose to my snake. I don't know animals. But anyway, we're so glad we have you in our trifecta, Sam.
Good to be here.
I hate to flip it, but you said you have like a rant.
I do.
All right, I'm ready. I love your rants, because I feel like when I do a rant or you do a rant, I feel like we laugh we don't really do a true rant. We just, one of us will just make it a joke somehow.
Yeah.
We'll see if this is possible.
Let's do this. This concerns advertising on streaming, like music streaming, like Spotify and iTunes. Okay, here we go. If I can have the next 3 or 4 minutes to just rant.
Go. I will not interrupt.
Sunday morning, my daughter and I get up. Beautiful morning, 8:30. It's not too hot yet. We're in the shadow of the house. She just got a Mustang convertible.
Okay.
It's an 06, so it's new to her, but it's a pretty car still. I was like, let's get that thing out in the morning, and we're going to wash and wax it.
Okay.
And guess what we're going to do while we wash and wax it? We're going to listen to my Spotify playlist, The Golden Oldies.
Okay.
We're listening to Buddy Holly, Chubby Checker, the Everly Brothers, Eddie Cochran, Little Richard, okay? That's the type of music we're listening to.
Or
then,
so you thought.
Well, then a commercial comes on.
Okay.
After our beautiful Golden Oldies, after about 5 or 6 songs of that, the commercial comes on. This aggressive rap beat, and this guy's like, basically paraphrasing, if you don't wear Old Spice, you're a little bitch, right? Just this, I'm like, my word, that's aggressive. That's very aggressive. Guess who's not going to go buy Old Spice?
Not anymore.
So
right?
if they would have came on and if it would have been like, hey, this is Jimmy here. Before me and Peggy Sue go down to the sock hop, I dab a little Old Spice behind each ear, and hopefully at the end of the night, I'll get a peck on the cheek.
Or I would have been like Casey Kasem or something.
A little bit of Old Spice. I would have been like, guess who can't get to the store fast enough to buy Old Spice now? I'd be like, I bet that's how 50s commercials really were. That was such a good commercial. Stop washing the car. We're going to get Old Spice right now. We can dry it off later. Or like if you listen to country or something, it could be like Sam Elliott, right? Before I get in my lifted Ford F-150 and tailgate everybody to and from work, I like to bathe in a gallon and a half of Old Spice. Because it really gets my Philly going. When I get home, the eye-watering stench of Old Spice. If a redneck heard that, he'd be like, guess what? On my way home, when I stop at the Dollar General, not only am I getting a can of Copenhagen Long Cut, I am also buying a bottle of Old Spice.
That could move some product. You're right about that.
It would. So I'm saying tailor your commercials to the type of playlists that your people are using. That's
that
all
makes
I'm saying.
sense. That does make sense.
Yes.
My son will be watching YouTube Kids and an ad will come on for something like American Fidelity Investments. It's like, come on, my kid's not going to broaden his portfolio right now.
Dad, I feel like I need to diversify.
Yeah, you're right, though. That makes a lot of sense because that is annoying because with any playlist, you have like a feel, like a vibe, and you had it like, Beach Boys, they're all harmonies in the sun, and then you hear the rap crap. Yeah, I can see why you're frustrated for sure.
I don't understand it.
Because they want you to go Spotify Premium. That's probably exactly why they did that. Some coder coded in there was like, we can get this guy to go rid of ads and pay us money if we throw him this ad that he will hate.
Dude, I did not think about that, but that would work because I almost want to get premium just so I don't have to. But the only type of like that aggressive, super crazy type of advertisement, like if we've been listening to gangster rap or death metal,
yeah,
it maybe would have worked.
Yeah,
for
sure.
But it's just so strange that it was after 50s. Death metal's funny though. I almost feel like I'm a stand-up comic.
No, keep going.
Isn't death metal funny? No,
he'll be here all week.
But it's like, how do they even describe the songs? Because it's, my favorite song on like Shitting Blood's album was ah! Like during the chorus when he said, oh, ah! Like that really resonated with me.
I just wonder when you look up lyrics, like on the lyric website, if it's just like A, H, 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 H.
I'm like, dude, I know. I get it. This guy's the songbird of our generation. It's incredible. All right, my rant's done.
It's good. That was more of a bit than a rant. That's really pretty good stuff. I like it.
I'll be here all week. Try the view.
I thought you were gonna, talk about woke culture or something. So it was nice that it wasn't that.
No, you just get it. It's a beautiful Sunday morning, and we're out there washing the car, flinging soap suds at it. Dad, stop flinging soap suds. You're silly. It could have been a Norman Rockwell painting.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, oh, do you want to smell good when you got Old Spice, motherfucker? Like, it was just very aggressive.
Yeah.
And right before that, we were listening to Every Day, It's a Getting Closer, Going Faster Than a Roller Coaster. And then Ice-T screaming at you about putting Old Spice on.
Hey, we're getting a lot of plays on Spotify, so I think Spotify should reach out to you and get you a premium sub for free. That's what I think.
I do too.
And then we'll bury all this. That'll be our deal. We'll go back and we'll delete this part. So right now we're holding you ransom with words.
That's right.
So until you're ready to pwn up for Joe's premium, subscription.
How much is premium monthly?
Well, I mean, it's like $14.99
That's what I was thinking, about $15.
Like 50 cents a day.
All right. So I only really have it. Well, I love it, but Mariah is on it too. You get like a family plan for that or whatever. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Well, I might just do that. Maybe I'll do that and then I won't have anything else to rant about.
But if you do they win?
They kind of do.
Yeah.
I would rather keep the free version of Spotify and go to my original premise and have ads that are tailored to the music that I'm listening.
Yeah.
That's my whole point.
Have some people make some ads that sound like different genres. You could do that easily. You get some studio musicians, pay them just a little bit. Yeah, that's not a problem.
Because these companies, listen, this is doing them a favor. They've paid the money. The whole point of an ad is to get their product out there and have you buy it. I'm not going to buy Old Spice if you're screaming at me about it.
And they know, come on, with all the data now, they know what kind of stuff you listen to.
They probably know what time I took my morning dump when I first got up.
Exactly. So they could target you.
They know everything. The Roomba probably has a secret camera on it and maps your house. And everyone knows everything you're doing in some creepy room somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, they need some Gin Blossom sounding song to,
Yeah.
try to sell you some stuff.
I'm in then.
Found out that you stink, something like that.
Gotta get some Old Spice, put it on, and then you're gonna smell real nice.
Yeah, there you go. There it is. Anyway, see, that's what they need to do.
That's what we should write
Easy.
jingles for.
Sure.
them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we could do it. Just call us 417-4-MANTIS if you want to reach out to us. We'll do some contract work for you. We'll get you some jingles. Joe, we have an episode. What do you got for us tonight?
I am excited, my friends.
Me too, because I actually know this time.
I told you guys. Tonight is part 1 of probably a 4-part series. I'm actually still researching on the tail end of this.
Okay.
I've got the next 3 episodes planned out, and there's definitely going to be a 4th. Anywho's, what we're going to do is part 1 of the Texarkana Moonlight Murders, a.k.a. the Phantom Killer.
Yeah, this is a big one. This was probably one reason I'm into true crime, because I caught onto this really early because there was the movie, The Town That Dreaded Sundown.
Yes.
My sisters would show me any movie. They didn't care if I was 5 years old and I wouldn't sleep for weeks.
Permanently scar you.
Yeah, they would show me anything. So I watched this movie when I was quite young, and it messed with my head. But I'm going to say in a good way, because it got me into true crime and thinking about cool things. And, it's kind of cool a little bit when you're a kid to be scared. Just a little bit. It's like, I don't know, to a certain point.
No, I understand exactly what you're saying, because I miss that.
Yes.
Once you grow up and you're all cynical and you know things.
Yeah, exactly.
No movie actually scares you. These days, when people say a movie scares you, it's a jump scare.
Yeah,
and that doesn't count.
True.
If it's just all quiet and all of a sudden it's like, boo, that's not really being scared. I want to be as scared as I was when I was a little kid and I saw Freddy Krueger's arms grow when he was reaching out. It was like,
yeah.
I was so freaking terrified.
I'm with you, sir.
I
love that feeling.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I was going to tell you this later in the episode, but I'll tell you now. I actually looked up on a map to see how far Texarkana was from where I live.
Oh.
And I looked and I was like, oh, thank goodness, because it's all the way across the state, to the south, right?
Oh, yeah.
But then sometimes it wasn't far enough away because I'd get myself freaked out again. And it's like, well, that's not very far. So it's like, depending on how I felt, I was like, well, it's so far away, I don't have to worry about that. But sometimes it's like, well, it's not very far away. That's in the same state. They could come up here and kill me or whatever.
Yeah.
Because, obviously, spoiler, we don't know. They didn't catch this dude unless they did, unless you're going to say something that I don't know about.
Dude, I'll tell you right now, this has never been solved.
Yeah. So a lot of theories out there. But anyway, I decided to tell you, like, sometimes it was far enough and sometimes it wasn't.
Yeah.
So, I get it. This is exciting. I'm glad we picked this one, or you picked this one. Nice job. So,
are we ready to start?
I'm ready.
In keeping with our recent slew of Arkansas-based cases, tonight we're beginning a series on what has become known as the Texarkana Moonlight Murders. They occurred in the mid-1940s and consist of 4 brutal attacks on 8 victims, 5 of which were killed. The perpetrator has become known by several names: the Phantom Killer, the Phantom Slayer, and the Phantom of Texarkana. Whoever he was, he left almost no clues, at least none that were detectable by 1940s forensic technology, and the case remains unsolved to this very day.
I was going to say, what?
Nearly 80 years later, it was solved immediately, and 80 years later, we're still talking about it.
Yeah, man.
The case is unsolved.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah.
And just the whole feel of The Town That Dreaded Sundown. I mean, the title of that, the fact that they would have curfews and stuff, that when I was a kid, it blew my mind, but we're going to get into that, I know for sure.
And it's the romanticism of this, it was in the mid-40s, so you've got that whole time period.
Sure.
Yeah, The Town That Dreaded Sundown is a great movie, wildly inaccurate.
Yeah. Since then, I've heard that it is.
But it is a good movie. It's a great horror film.
Yeah.
But yeah, just don't watch it and think you're like, watching anything that's historically accurate or correct as far as this is concerned.
Yeah.
If you want to watch a good Texarkana movie, watch Smokey and the Bandit.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
There's beer in Texarkana. Yeah, that's right, baby.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
Mm-hmm.
Texas side of it.
Oh, yeah. Which is basically right there. I mean, it's the equivalent of Siloam Springs, right? I mean, it's
yes.
But of course, they don't call it West Texarkana.
No. So yeah, we're gonna talk about that.
Is there a casino in West Texarkana?
We're going to,
Be interesting.
we'll just get into it.
Yeah. Let's,
Before we get to the meat and potatoes of the episode, we must clarify a couple of things. And that's, you guys led me right into it, the whole Texarkana thing being split down the middle by the state line. Some people think Texarkana is in Texas and some think it's in Arkansas. And the truth is they're both right. There are two Texarkanas that straddle the Arkansas-Texas border. It's a bit confusing, though, because it's not like Memphis, Tennessee and West Memphis, Arkansas. There is no East or West Texarkana. There is quite literally a Texarkana, Texas, and a Texarkana, Arkansas, with the state line running right down the middle, even through the state line post office and federal building, the only post office that sits in two states. By and large, each city operates independently from each other. Each Texarkana has its own mayor, own police department, fire department, and schools. In fact, both schools, though only separated by one wide street, obviously called State Line Avenue, regularly compete in football and other sporting events. The Texarkana Tigers versus the Texarkana Razorbacks. Gee, I wonder which one is the Arkansas.
well, if I'm not wrong about this, they were the Razorbacks before we were.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think they were.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Because before you talked about this on another episode.
The Cardinals.
The Cardinals.
That's why when you're talking about Arkansas Razorbacks, the colors are red. Well, everyone says red, but it's really Cardinal red.
We were the Cardinals before.
Then some sports writer a long time ago said they run like a bunch of wild hogs or something like that. And then somehow there's a rename based on that. I forgot how that really worked. But it was way, way, way long time ago.
I'm not even a sports guy, but I'd say the Razorbacks is a way cooler name than the Cardinals.
I think so, especially for a football team. I mean, think about how fast you could kill a bird if you jumped on top of it. Like, it's like to tackle it.
Yeah.
Feathers would just fly everywhere.
But not a Razorback, my God.
Exactly.
There are slightly more people on the Texas side, about 37,000 to Arkansas's 31,000. So pretty.
I was always wondering that.
Yeah. But most of the residents consider the town as one Texarkana. It even has one chamber of commerce, which confuses a lot of outsiders. And me. But the town's name isn't just an amalgamation of Texas and Arkansas. Louisiana is in there too. That's why it's Texarkana. Texarkana sits in a very unique place, straddling Texas and Arkansas, of course, but Louisiana is only 27 miles to the south and Oklahoma is just 27 miles to the northwest. Back in the late 1800s, Texarkana gained quite a reputation as a rowdy railroad town. You see, 4 passenger rail lines intersected there, and considering the town's location amidst 4 states, it was the perfect place for outlaws to hide out and skip state lines to avoid bounties.
It's kind of cool.
Very cool.
Well, I mean, I'm not against law breaking, but, because it's historic, that's cool.
I love it. It's cool. I love the time period. Later on, with the introduction of the automobile, and soon after the era of Prohibition, Texarkana became a hotbed for bootleggers and booze runners crisscrossing state to state, mainly from the wet states of Texas and Arkansas to the dry state of Oklahoma.
It's like Sam was talking about.
Yes.
Earlier.
I don't think Oklahoma became a wet state until like 1959 or so. So they were late to the game. One author wrote, quote, "The great majority of Texarkana's early settlers were gamblers, gunmen, and other lawless individuals who flocked into town where law enforcement was weak. It was a veritable magnet for the criminally inclined." I love that quote.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Throughout the remainder of the 1800s and into the first part of the 20th century, the Texarkana area was no stranger to crime and violence. There's the unsolved murder of Gertrude O'Dwyer, whose head was bashed in with a car axle and her throat slit ear to ear. We're setting the stage of Texarkana as a wild-ass place.
Yeah, I would say you succeeded.
Long before the Texarkana Moonlight Murders.
Wow.
There was the lynching of Willie Vinson by an angry mob who suspected him of attacking a white woman and her baby based on zero evidence, mind you. She only knew that her attacker was black and nothing else. Then there were the murders of H.H. Hasselberg, Walker Kurtner, and countless others, as well as robberies, carjackings, shootings, and assaults. Texarkana in the 20s and 30s and 40s, early 40s, was a wild place.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
Totally.
But I don't mean to make it sound like Texarkana was some dangerous cesspool that was unsafe to live in for everyone. A huge majority of the crime took place where you would expect, amongst the shady characters engaged in one or more of the many criminal enterprises I just described. If you were an average law-abiding citizen who stayed in your lane and minded your own, you were almost certainly excluded from any of that danger. That is, until early 1946, when a slew of random, unprovoked attacks shook the town to its very core. Also, we must note that 3 of the 4 attacks took place on the Texas side of the border, and only the final attack was in Arkansas.
Okay.
But I still consider this an Arkansas case.
Yeah. Mainly because we're in Arkansas, right? No, I'm
Right.
joking.
No, yeah, you're right. And I'm going to bend things to the way I want things to be.
That's right.
So this is an Arkansas case.
We're claiming this one.
Of the 4 attacks committed in the summer of 46, or more like the spring, all but one occurred on various lovers' lanes at night. And in practically all of the content you'll see on the Moonlight Murders, you'll be told that the first victims, a man and a young woman who were parked on one of these lovers' lanes, were each married to other people.
Okay.
Dum, dum, dum.
Not good.
Scandalous, cheating bastards. I'm glad they got what they deserved.
So it's kind of like that movie Scream, like, victims get what they deserve based on because they made some kind of minor or major mistake.
Hello, Sydney. Yeah, that whole thing.
Where did you get a voice modulator? It's short notice.
So listen, this is technically true. They were each married to other folks, and they were together out in this car on Lover's Lane.
Okay.
I don't see nothing wrong with a little bump and grind, right? Anyway.
Yeah.
The full story is not as scandalous as you would think. And that's why most people don't include the full story, because they just want that headline, man, to make it scandalous, get clicks. Guess what? Here at Dawn of Mantis, you're getting the full story.
Oh, man, I wanted to spread around the scandalous part. Well, I still will. I just, whatever you're about to say, I'll just forget.
Okay.
So, conveniently.
Like the mainstream media. All right. Jimmy Hollis.
Shots fired.
Jimmy Hollis was born in northern Louisiana, but grew up mostly in El Dorado.
El Dorado?
I think it's El Dorado.
That sounds right.
That's
Forgive
how I've
me.
always heard it.
My Arkansan friends.
Miami.
He grew up there mostly before moving to California as a teenager. When the U.S. entered World War II, Jimmy rushed to join the Navy, but a congenital heart defect disqualified him from military service. Instead, he found a job at an aircraft manufacturing facility in Fort Worth, Texas. Why are you laughing?
You're just going way back to describe this affair. But no, I'm glad. It's just funny to me.
It'll make sense.
I know, but I'm impressed, really. It's like, well, you're just going to, it wasn't as bad as it seems.
No.
Let me tell you why. This guy was born in 19...
It all started on a sunny day in 1932.
I'm just impressed. You're going, I mean, you're really doing your due diligence here to explain this. And it's just funny to me that it's so elaborate, but that you're doing backstories. It's cool,
we
cool,
are going to introduce you to the victims and let you know a little bit about their lives.
I like it. I like it. It's cool. No, I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing with you.
So yes, he found a job at an aircraft manufacturing facility in Fort Worth, Texas. This was after him not being able to serve in the Army.
Okay.
This is where he met and married a gal named Dora Nichols in December of 1942.
Okay.
For whatever reasons, they separated 3 years later and filed for a mutual divorce in February of 1946.
Okay.
After that, he left Fort Worth and moved in with his brother Bob in Texarkana. That's how he ended up in Texarkana.
I gotcha.
That is where he met a sweet-looking, pretty little gal named Mary Jeanne Larey.
Okay.
Her name was Mary Larey.
Okay.
Oh, your name's going to be Julia Gulia. That's funny. Why? I don't know. She was born Mary Jeanne Harris and actually lived about 12 miles outside of Texarkana on the Texas side in a little town named Hooks.
Okay. I didn't expect that.
Hooks.
Are you going for the jump scare thing like you were talking about earlier?
People listening at home are like, Jesus Christ. Why? When she was 16 years old, she met a guy named Roland Larey.
Okay.
Better known as Stretch. That was his nickname.
See, one of the
Oh,
ghosts
Stretch!
from Casper? Christina Ricci? There was a ghost named Stretch.
Yep.
How would one get the nickname Stretch? What about your personality or your lifestyle would make someone call you that? I
Just
really want to know.
Tall and lanky.
Yeah, maybe he had
Or
maybe he had a long neck or arms or something. You know?
Affinity for yoga. I don't know.
That's true.
He's always doing downward dog out in his yard, show off.
Hey, look, Stretch is at it again. Look at him.
Oh,
He's in good shape. I know. I'll tell you that much.
when Mary was 16 years old and met this Roland Larey guy, they eloped.
Okay.
Now, since you couldn't marry at 16 without parental consent, Mary Jeanne lied about her birthday to make herself 18, and the couple wed in 1943.
It's just so funny. That's all you had to do. There's no other way they could prove it. I mean, people would lie to get in the war to.
Oh, that happened a lot.
Yeah, a ton. So I got in the World War II kick at watching World War II documentaries and movies. And yeah, I mean, it's crazy. 14, what, you mean 18? Yeah, okay.
Whatever you say. Whatever I need to be to get
And
in
they
here.
knew it too.
Kick some German ass.
Exactly.
That's all they said.
Yeah.
But Sidney Algin Pavat, the episode a few episodes ago, he lied about his age to be old enough to be in the Arkansas State Police.
Yeah.
So it happens all the time. But like Jimmy's marriage, Mary Jeanne's dissolved quickly, and by the winter of 1945, she was separated from Stretch and living back with her parents in Hooks.
Okay.
So they were both married, but they were both separated from those partners and in the middle of a divorce. So that doesn't make it as scandalous.
No, it doesn't.
That doesn't make it like, oh, we got to hurry and do this quick because, Stretch is going to be home soon. I got to get home soon. It's not like that. They hadn't even seen their partners in months.
Yeah. No, it's good. You did a great job. I don't think they should have been killed now.
But before, to hell with them.
No, I never did.
All right.
My hands are up.
By the time she met Jimmy Hollis in February of 1946, she too was waiting for her divorce to be finalized. So yes, Mary Jeanne and Jimmy were out on a date while they were married to other people, but that's the full story. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
I like it.
They were good Christians in God's eyes.
Yeah.
Probably. I don't know.
Well, yeah.
This brings us to the evening of Friday, February 22nd, 1946. This is when you know shit's about to go down.
Uh-oh.
When I say the date, the full date.
Yeah. That means it's important.
Yeah. It was the morning of August 4th, 1948. You're like, oh, shit.
Because you're never like, not much happened that morning or evening or night. It was the next day. No. Yeah, you wouldn't do that to us.
Next day is when shit really hit the fan. Earlier that week, Jimmy had arranged a double date between himself and Mary Jeanne with his brother Bob and the girl that he'd fixed him up with, a gal named Virginia Fairchild.
Okay.
Jimmy and Bob picked up the girls that evening and drove to the Paramount Theater to watch the newly released film, Three Strangers.
Okay. Never seen it. Have you?
Never even heard of it. No. The movie was over by 10:15 and the four climbed back into Jimmy's gray Chevrolet sedan and drove to a drive-in cafe for soda pops.
Oh, that's cool.
I freaking love it.
That's neat.
They really did, man. One of them probably had on a poodle skirt. They drove to a cafe for soda pops. God. After spending about a half an hour at the cafe, Jimmy dropped Bob and Virginia off at their respective homes before heading west towards Hooks to drop off Mary Jeanne. I can't say it without it. I just can't say Hooks without emphasizing it.
I get you. There's something about it. I don't know what it is.
So he's going to take her home, right? But guess what? He ain't taking her home yet.
Oh, no. They're going to Lover's Lane.
How about instead of driving you home, we pull off into this secluded drive?
Yeah.
And she's like, I guess. You know how it goes. She's like, what? You're so bad. You're so bad, but okay. Sorry. It got super weird.
That was... I don't think Valley Girls were a thing yet. You're so bad.
You're so bad.
You're such a bad boy. You're so bad, it's good.
Why is that so funny?
I don't know. You do. You started it.
Okay, hold on. Oh. Instead of, I can't see, I cried just then when I laughed. Instead of driving home, they turned onto a secluded gravel path north off Richmond Road and parked for a little Privacy.
Probably just to talk.
Probably just to talk. That's all
Mhm.
teenage kids do, right?
That's right.
They're just boiling in hormones.
What'd you get on that algebra test?
We're still
I
Valley.
gotta say.
I gotta say, whatever. How would they talk?
What'd you get on that algebra
Yeah,
test?
gee whiz, what'd you get on that algebra test?
Oh, yeah. I don't even know what their dialect would be.
Golly gee, that's a good grade. You're really studying hard. You know what else is hard?
Science.
Yeah, there you go.
Physics.
Science is awfully hard as well. So is anatomy. Speaking of anatomy. Anyway, I'm just trying to think of as a teenage boy with a girl parked on a lonely dirt road. You know what I mean? That's happened. I've been that guy. We've all been that guy. I'm the only one of the three that'll talk about it. That's cool. But we've all been that guy. You know where you do the little finger walk across the bench seat? The vinyl bench seat of your 1974 Ford Ranchero, and oops, I'm on your thigh.
No, that was Jim Gaffigan that you did there. You channeled him.
I'm sorry, I did. That's
That's
weird.
good stuff, though.
Okay, but in all seriousness, instead of taking her home, they pulled off on this road.
Gotcha.
That's where we are, okay?
But it wasn't a lover's lane, like it wasn't an official, because that's what I always thought about all
No,
these.
it was a pretty popular spot for teenage kids to go
I was
and
just making sure that.
talk about their home.
Yeah, I gotcha.
If you want to know exactly where they were, just look up Grandy's Southern Restaurant in Texarkana, Texas. Honestly, that's not a joke. And that's pretty much the place.
Oh, okay, but it wasn't there then.
No, yeah, not all those years ago. They were outside of town all those years ago, and that was secluded. And
Okay.
Yep. Obviously, there wasn't a Grandy's there at the time, and a lot has changed in 77 years. Sam's looking it up, and also for those of you watching our YouTube channel, there will be a wonderful photograph of exactly where they were on the screen right now.
Yeah. If it wasn't so far, we'd do a reel, but it's like 4 hours.
It is. It's a little too far.
Yeah.
Maybe not. I've drove 9 for this shit. Maybe I'll go down there. Who knows?
Well, yeah.
I haven't yet, but maybe I will.
Yeah. Grandy's.
Grandy's. There it is, baby. That is roughly where.
Wow, it looks like a lot of it has grown up around it.
Yeah. If you look north of it, I'm not even seeing the map, but if you look north of it, the Texas Central Mall or something is probably not that far away. Obviously, that wasn't there at the time as well. So it was after 11 o'clock when the couple wheeled down the private road and a moonless sky hung above them. The warm yellow glow of the car's radio illuminated the interior, but when Jimmy shut off the headlights on his old Chevy, the area around them was pitch dark. Jimmy used to sing and dance back in the Fort Worth, and after chatting a while, guess what he did? He sang to Mary Jeanne.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and the pale dash lights of that old Chevy. I don't know what he's saying. I don't know. It's got to be at least 1946 or older, obviously.
Yeah.
I don't even know what the hell he's saying. Something pretty.
Yeah, I would imagine.
This guy was debonair. He was suave.
Yeah, because I didn't ever sing to my dates.
I think I did
ever.
I don't think I did either. After visiting a while, and look, I'm being a douche. Maybe they just pulled over and talked. All this, insinuating that I'm talking about.
Sure.
Maybe none of that happened. Who knows? We don't know. But anyway, after hanging out in that car for a while, Jimmy opened up the Chevy's door and stood out on the gravel drive to look up at the stars.
Okay.
I'm just going to look up at the stars.
Look for Starlink.
Yeah. Thank you for that, by the way.
It happened last night again, too.
It did?
Yeah.
Oh,
I forgot. I should have texted you.
Tell me every time.
I will.
That's when, out of nowhere, the powerful beam of a flashlight burst into the night and directly into Jimmy's eyes. And a gruff, forceful voice called out, "Take off your fucking pants!"
Ooh.
That's what was said. Jimmy lived, so we have a firsthand account.
Yeah. And I knew one of them did, but I couldn't
They
remember.
both
which one.
did.
Okay.
Yeah, both of these victims, the first attack victims did live. As Jimmy's eyes adjusted to the light, he could see the light glimmering off an object in the man's other hand, and that was a pistol.
Okay.
After trying to wrap his head around the situation, Jimmy decided this must be some sort of prank, which I can kind of see.
Sure.
You
Like
would-
one of his friends or something, or
Yeah, you would never
of course
think
he'd
that would really
try
happen.
to recognize his voice, but I guess somebody could change it a little bit. You know?
Yeah,
Or it could just be a random prankster.
yeah. So
Wow.
that's what he's thinking at first.
Sure.
Then Jimmy explained, this is what he said, "Fellow, you've got me mixed up with someone else. You got the wrong man."
Yeah.
Well, this really pissed off whoever was behind that flashlight, and they replied, "I don't want to kill you, fellow, so you better do what I tell you. Take off your goddamn pants now." That's what he said. As Jimmy stood there in shock, he heard Mary Jean's shaky voice from the car window saying, "Jimmy, please take them off. Right, just do what the guy says." Jimmy took a deep breath and began to unbuckle his belt. As he leaned over to remove his pants, the man lurched forward and struck the top of Jimmy's head with some sort of object.
Pistol whipped.
Yes, that's what I think. As Jimmy crumpled to his knees, there was another brutal blow to his head. When he finally collapsed to the ground, there was yet a third vicious strike to the head, followed by a barrage of kicks to his body and face. Mary Jeanne was in an obvious panic. It was too dark to see what was happening from the car, but she knew that Jimmy had been shot at least twice. That's what she thought.
Oh, okay.
She would later find out that those loud pops were not gunshots, but the sounds of Jimmy's skull cracking as he was being bludgeoned. His skull was fractured all over. Like, the fact that he lived is a miracle. We'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah.
Desperate to stop the attack, Mary Jeanne climbed out of the car and over to the pair of pants that Jimmy had just taken off. She pulled his wallet out of the back pocket, held it open, and pleaded with Jimmy's assailant. She said, "Look, he doesn't have any money." For a moment, there was nothing said, and the only sound was of Jimmy making the disturbing groans and snorts that result from severe head trauma as he lay bloodied in the gravel. Finally, the man whirled around and shouted, "You're lying!" Mary Jeanne held out the wallet again. "No, look, you can see." The attacker didn't acknowledge her and growled, "Where's your purse?" Mary Jeanne replied she had not taken her purse with her that night. Hearing this, the man lunged forward and cracked her on the head with what felt like a pistol or an iron bar. We don't know, really. She fell for a moment, but sprang right back up, and that's when the man aimed his gun right at her head and said, "Take off, run." This is word for word out of the, and I'll name the book and the sources after. That was a command that Mary Jeanne was happy to follow. Despite still wearing her high heels, she bolted away from the man towards the ditch. From behind her, she heard him shout, "Not that way, go up the road." Mary obliged, but as she ran into the darkness, she fully expected a bullet to pierce her body at any moment, but it never did. She did hear the man continuing to stomp and kick Jimmy as she fled into the darkness. Then she was greeted with a beautiful sight, a car parked just down the way. It was probably another couple down there. Help. She darted for the car and screamed for help, only to find it was empty. With horror, she realized that this was the vehicle of her attacker. He had witnessed her and Jimmy pull off the road and had followed them in with his headlights off. As Mary Jeanne stood by the car, bleeding and panting and wondering what to do next, she heard heavy footsteps pounding the gravel from Jimmy's direction. Their assailant was now in a dead run towards her. She turned to run, but he was on her in seconds. "What the hell are you running for?" the man replied, confused. Mary Jeanne said, "You told me to," which he did. And then he replied, "You're a goddamn liar." Then,
Wow.
It was the second time he had attacked her. He struck her on the head again, much harder than the first time. And again, Mary Jeanne fell to the ground. As she lay in the dirt, drifting in and out of consciousness, she felt the man violently. Okay, I freaking hate reading these parts, but it's part of the story, okay?
Okay.
We're just going to get through this as quick as possible. She felt the man violently rip off her underwear. Moments later, he sexually assaulted her with the barrel of the pistol he'd been carrying. At this moment, Mary Jeanne was convinced she was going to die, so she yelled, "Just go ahead and kill me." Then out of nowhere, the man jumped up from Mary Jeanne and took off running down the road. She was never really sure why. Remember, she had suffered 2 terrible blows to the head and was mentally foggy, to say the least. But Mary Jeanne eventually decided the man must have been scared off by a passing car on the main road. Just then, a car drove by, and she ran to the edge of the street, waving her arms and yelling at it to stop. It did not. After this, Mary Jeanne ran to a nearby house and began pounding the door and yelling for help. Finally, a man opened the door, and Mary told him what had just happened and begged him to call for help. He immediately called the sheriff's office. Okay, we got through that part.
Yeah. Yeah, that was rough. So Sam's got the map pulled up.
Yeah.
Do you know what direction she ran to run to the house?
I don't. No,
Okay.
if you can, well, now it's so many years later, it'd be impossible.
Sure. I was just going to kind of piece it together a little bit, but
It was my assumption that she ran back up the drive to the main road. And I believe on the other side of that main road, even at the time, there were a few houses.
sure.
So that's what I'm pretty sure happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the very first attack of what would later be, called the Phantom Killer. And I will say, for quite a while, this attack was not connected to the other ones
Okay.
because these kids lived. They weren't shot to death
Sure.
like the other ones. But to me, that's weird because the MO is identical to the couple that happened next. It was kids or people parked in a car on a lover's lane at night. Everything was exactly the same, except for in this first instance, they were beaten and not murdered. So for some reason, for like months, the cops were like, not connected,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Very strange.
Yeah, that is strange. There must have been some reason why they didn't really put it together, though. But yeah, that is strange.
They got this weird ass idea in their head that we're going to get to here in a minute, and we're all going to roll our eyes right out of our heads. But I'm going to explain why they didn't connect them for a while.
Okay.
So back at the scene of the attacks, Jimmy was just regaining consciousness. He wiped the blood from his eyes and fumbled in the dirt for his glasses. Just then, a set of headlights cut through the darkness. A car was coming. Jimmy struggled to his feet and managed to stumble into the center of the road, stopping the car. By the way, he was unlucky enough to stop the car of the biggest douchebag in the world.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
He made his way to the driver's side window and saw a man behind the wheel. And the guy had a female passenger sitting beside him. Jimmy said, "I've got to see a doctor. I'm hurt bad. Take me to the hospital." He pleaded this and grabbed the handle of the back door and tried to open it. The driver snatched the door back shut and said, "Don't do that. You'll get blood in my car."
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Then he said, "I'll call an ambulance for you when I get home."
Oh my God.
That's what the piece of shit said. Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
I'll have to scrub the upholstery forever if you get blood in here. Come on, just wait by the ditch and try not to bleed to death and I'll get you an ambulance. Jesus Christ, this guy. It's just
How selfish are you? You'd get blood all in my car?
Yeah, this is diamond tuck leather. Look back there. Do you see that shit? That cost me $20 because this is 1946.
He sounds like he's from the upper Northeast, too.
He was
That's
visiting.
probably why. Some Yankee wouldn't help him out. I knew it.
God damn Yankees. That's what the problem was. But the driver actually didn't end up having to call the ambulance because about that time an ambulance drove up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, along with a city police car. They came racing down Richmond Road and onto the gravel drive towards them. Mary Jeanne had found help.
Okay.
So yeah, Mary Jeanne, man, what a tough lady. Despite the brutal attack, because I don't think her skull was fractured, but she was still hit enough that she needed stitches and, she was bleeding profusely. Head wounds are bad.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. You get cut in the head that bleeds forever.
Yeah. And she still managed to run, I don't know, however many 100 yards and get help for Jimmy. So she probably saved his life.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. I would say for sure. That one guy didn't do him any favors.
I'll call an ambulance when I get home, but I got to stop off at the Piggly Wiggly first and buy a gallon of milk. But then when I get home, I will call an ambulance. I don't know. Yeah.
I'm a man of my word.
It's always the Bronx, no matter if we're in Arkansas.
It's fine. It's what ties it all together.
Can't help myself.
That works.
Well, the man that Mary Jeanne had found called the Bowie County Sheriff's Department, and at that time, the Bowie County Sheriff was a guy named Bill Presley.
Okay.
And I'll take this moment to say the book that I based a lot of this research off was written by Bill Presley's nephew or something.
Okay, that's neat.
Grandson.
Had a tie to it. That's cool.
Yeah. I need to look up. I should probably know exactly the relation, but
Well, they just say they were related.
They were related.
And leave it at that. Next week we can clear that up.
yeah, we'll check that out. Presley arrived on scene along with several Texarkana city policemen. You see, Sheriff Presley only had a few deputies to cover all of Bowie County, so most of the Texarkana police were deputized in order to be able to assist the sheriff when needed.
Okay.
Again, there's more of that crisscrossy stuff between
Sure.
the Texarkanas and the counties.
Yeah, I gotcha.
It was just another one of the many odd arrangements that made Texarkana work.
Okay.
Jimmy, who was now in a coma in the ER, was obviously in no shape to be interviewed, at least not anytime soon. Mary Jeanne had also been beaten as well as sexually abused, and she was understandably shaken very badly. But she was able to recount the night's events pretty clearly for Sheriff Presley. She told him where the attacker's car had been and said he was about 6 feet tall, very strong, and sounded like a black man. During the attack, she was either in the dark or blinded by the flashlight, but believed he could have been a light-skinned black man.
Okay.
She based this mainly off his hands because he was wearing a crudely made mask, almost like a pillowcase with eye holes and a mouth hole cut out.
So in the movie, it was like almost like a burlap, like not burlap, but it was like a flour sack.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
that's not really consistent. I mean, a pillowcase isn't. I wouldn't confuse a pillowcase with a flour sack.
No.
Just the texture of it's all wrong.
Yeah. Your basic old gunny sack.
Yeah,
type
something
thing.
like that.
It's
yeah.
all rough.
Yeah.
And woven.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, hey, it's a movie. I get it.
It's still a good movie.
Oh yeah.
I still recommend it.
Yeah.
Police went to where the attacker's car had been parked and traced the tire tracks in the dirt. What they discovered horrified Mary Jeanne. So, I described earlier the first car that she saw drive by did not help her.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the tracks led right by the home where Mary Jeanne had found help, meaning that car was likely the car driven by the guy that had just attacked her.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, that car that she found abandoned down the road.
Sure.
It was now gone, and the tracks from there led directly by the house. So creepy as that is, that's probably what happened. As she ran off, that guy was fleeing, and the very car that she was trying to stop was driven by her attacker.
Oh, wow. Yeah, she's lucky he didn't stop.
Yeah, that's why I'm
Again.
like, why didn't he stop and finish it off? There was a house nearby, so maybe he was afraid of being seen.
Yeah, that was probably enough for him.
Yeah. Well, after being examined and having her head wounds stitched up, Mary Jeanne was cleared to go home. Sheriff Presley drove her back to her parents' house in Hooks and assured her that he'd be in touch.
Okay.
Be like, I hope you'll be in touch because I just got freaking attacked by a madman.
Yeah.
Let's find out who this
It wasn't
is.
attempted murder. I mean, I would call that attempted murder.
Me too. Absolutely. Yeah. Dude, if you full force hit someone on the head with a steel object or
Sure.
that's attempted murder.
Yeah. Totally.
The attack on Jimmy and Mary Jeanne made the front page of the daily newspaper the next day with the headline, Masked Man Beats Texarkanian Girl. I guess Jimmy didn't get to be part of the headline.
No.
The people of Texarkana now feared there was a violent masked man roaming the night looking for his next victim. But the police were not so sure. The more they combed over Mary Jeanne's statements, the more they doubted their accuracy. First off, violent offenders tend to target within their own ethnicity as well as in familiar areas. Back in the 40s, most towns usually had a black part of town, and the location where the attacks took place was not anywhere near the black part of town.
Okay.
Yeah, stick with me. It's a little silly. Secondly, they just couldn't accept that such a violent attack had been random. Usually assaults of that intensity were personal. This led police to a new theory. This theory, by the way, that I'm about to name is completely why they got so off track and refused to lump these attacks in with the other ones for so long.
Which before you say that, I'm going to say it's not a problem to have a idea of you think that what it might happen, but when you don't find any evidence that supports that, you got to back burner that idea.
Yeah.
I kind of get where you're going, but
Well, I'm torn because technically they were right. Like normally killers do hunt within kind of familiar territories and they do hunt within their own ethnicities.
Yeah.
So part of that, I'm like, that's good police work. Especially in the mid 40s in Arkansas, it's a very good thing they weren't just like, well, let's go lynch a black man. Because that's what had just happened with Willie Vinson just a few years earlier.
so I'd like to get Stephen Coppinger's idea on this, because I'm sure he would say, not to put words in his mouth, but I'm sure he would say, well, yeah, you have an idea. You think that might have happened, but you still have to keep all the other possibilities open because, you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. I'm just going to assume he would say something like that. And we've done enough of these where we see that too.
Yeah. I'll put words in his mouth. That's exactly what he would say. And then he would also say, Dawn of Mantis is the best goddamn podcast that ever existed. I know he would say that.
He might say most of that.
Like minus a couple of words.
Yes.
This new theory, okay, that I'm about to name.
I can't wait.
The theory was that Jimmy and Mary Jeanne knew their attacker and they were lying about the mask to conceal his identity because they were afraid of like retribution or whatever. So their theory was that they actually knew this guy. It was something, someone they'd have a previous beef or problem with. And he attacked them, but they were lying because they were afraid of further retribution or whatever.
I mean, you could think that, but don't you got to look at it the other way too? We just said that.
Yeah. So they believe the couple feared the guy so much and feared a revenge attack that they decided to pretend they didn't see who he was or lie. So as the days wore on, this became the prevailing theory, although Mary Jeanne fiercely denied it. Of course, there was another witness that had yet to be interviewed. So that's Jimmy because he's in a coma.
Sure.
So police switched their focus over on getting an account from Jimmy as soon as he was able to.
Yeah.
Because remember, this poor guy has multiple skull fractures and he's in a coma. He was literally on the razor's edge of death. You're so close, man. It's crazy that he lived.
Yeah. Yeah. Blood loss and in the coma. Yeah. That's
brain swelling
Sure.
and all that stuff, man.
Yeah.
For the first several days that Jimmy was in the hospital, he was teetering on the brink of death and his doctors did not seem hopeful. He had suffered multiple skull fractures as well as dozens of cuts and bruises from the vicious beating that he had received. The fact that he had been able to stand up and walk out into the road that night was nothing short of a miracle. Jimmy was strong, and after those initial days, finally began to recuperate. It was 15 days before he was allowed to go home, and even then, it took several more months to fully recover. So this was a huge deal.
That seems like a kind of a short amount of time, though, based on what he went through.
Yeah.
He was strong. Wow.
He was, I think certain people, man, are just made of sterner stock, if you want to say that way.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of other people would have survived that. So like as soon as Jimmy got home, Sheriff Bowie was knocking on his door. Because that's like 50% of the
exactly.
people that were there. Jimmy backed up what Mary Jeanne had said. They did not know their attacker. And the assault was completely out of the blue and random. But that's where the similarities ended, okay? When asked to describe the man, Jimmy said he was a young white guy.
Okay.
Probably 30 years old. The police then asked about a mask. Jimmy didn't remember seeing a mask on the guy.
Oh, okay.
But he also didn't remember seeing his face. And remember, this is testimony coming from a guy that got beat into a coma.
Sure.
So we don't know how accurate.
Yeah.
Jimmy said, quote, if Mary Jeanne said he was wearing a mask, he was wearing a mask.
Okay. Okay.
However, he insisted the man was white, not black, perhaps a darker-skinned white man, but nonetheless. So here we go. Mary Jeanne is saying it's a light-skinned black dude, and he is saying it's a dark-skinned white dude. So it could literally be anybody.
Yeah.
Think of the one kid with the flat top from Kid and Play, and then like Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
Hulk Hogan is like way darker than that kid from Kid and Play, but he's black. So like, what are we doing? What's happening?
It's too bad Michael Jackson didn't exist then, because they say, was it the early 80s Michael Jackson? Or the later in life Michael Jackson? Which one?
I want to rock with you all night. Was it that Michael Jackson, or was it don't matter if we're black or white?
Yeah. Yeah.
Was it that Michael?
And the cop's like, it does matter if he's black or white. I need to know it.
New theory. The Texarkana Moonlight Murderer was Michael Jackson, the Phantom Killer.
That's right.
Take off your pants.
Now, goddammit. He said he, like in a really high-pitched tone. It was Michael Jackson. Oh, my God.
He kept grabbing his crotch.
Shamona. He kept saying that, and I was like, what does that mean? I've never heard that lingo before.
It's so funny. We're going there. That's awesome. I love it. Oh, my goodness.
But you've got so much charisma. It's crazy. Many parts of that night and the following days were a fog, because of Jimmy's head trauma.
Sure.
His account of the attack only confused things. Was it a light-skinned black guy or a dark-skinned white guy?
I'm confused.
Had he worn a mask or not? The police felt like they were running in circles. With no new leads, the story began to fade from the headlines, but not from Jimmy and Mary Jean's memories. They suffered from what we now call PTSD and found returning to their normal lives difficult.
Sure. Yeah. Totally see that.
Yeah. Mary Jeanne was especially traumatized, of course, and soon she left Texarkana altogether. She moved 350 miles to live with her aunt and uncle in the town of Frederick, a speck on the map in the middle of nowhere, Oklahoma.
Okay.
She just bailed.
Never heard of that.
I've never heard of it either. Soon after, both Jimmy and Mary Jean's divorces were granted, and Jimmy drove out to Frederick to see her. He'd gone there in hopes of continuing their relationship, but after a few days together, they both knew they'd experienced too much trauma together. Jimmy drove back to Texarkana as a single man, and as far as I could tell, the pair were never together again.
Yeah. Yeah, not only did he, do all that, he caused that relationship to not happen.
Yeah, that seemed really sad to me when I discovered that.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. It does.
It's like the timelines and all these different universes we're in. So like in a universe where they'd never been attacked, could they have gotten married and been together 60 years
sure
into old age and had 4 kids, and then their 4 kids had 9 grandkids, and like this whole splinter of life would have came out of them, but instead this trauma thing happened, and
yeah,
it's wild.
Yeah, like he pulls up and he sees them, but then he decides it's too risky, and then he keeps moving on.
Yeah,
and they don't get. But how many people? Well, obviously he's working up courage to do this. I mean, I think. So how many people did he pass and not attack that did live long lives?
Yeah, because at that time in Texarkana, and at that time maybe everywhere in the mid-40s, kind of maybe as part of the culture, it was very common for teenagers to be parked out on lovers' lanes.
Yeah.
And even in the mid-90s when I was a teenager, there were 2 specific places around my town where kids just went to park.
Yeah.
You know?
And not all of it was romance. I mean, we had places that we would all get out of the cars and we would just be standing around really doing nothing just but talking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one place, my favorite place to go, and I don't know if anyone else actually knew about this place because I never encountered anybody else. There was a couple other places where you'd be driving down the little lane and then you'd like see other taillights and you're like, oh, this occupied. So you had to back out.
Yeah.
But this one place, I'm not going to say where, but I'll just say that it was such a tiny little lane and it was overgrown on either side where actually as you drove through it, leaves and branches were kind of scraping down the side of your car.
I remember some places like that.
And then you would kind of emerge and there was a grave there.
Oh.
Yes. And the place where the grave was always really manicured, and it was probably a 50 square foot just patch.
Okay, so you just park right there?
Just park right there. And the grave it was a man's grave, and it had like the little oval picture of him on the grave.
Oh, wow.
So I don't even remember how I found that spot, but me and my first girlfriend would drive to that spot all the time.
Yeah.
And we would, we would
talk about your algebra test.
We would talk about algebra, you know what I mean?
I don't know if this should even make the podcast. Something that happened to me the other day. Well, it's been a few weeks ago now, but the place we would always hang out when we were teenagers was a store not too far from my house, a little convenience store. And there was this guy that was older than all of us by a few years. And I don't really know the science behind it, how it had happened, but his thing to impress all of us would be to do like a burnout under this light, some kind of light. I don't know. And eventually there'd be so much smoke, it would make the light go out.
Oh, really?
But then after the smoke would clear, it would come back on. Well, I don't really understand why it would do that. But I was in that same store the other day, just just grabbing a Coke or whatever. And I looked, and that guy was in there, and he was playing one of those little, the little gambling machines in
Are
the
you
store.
serious?
So, I mean, that's like 20 something, 30 years later. It's like he was still there.
Dude,
I just still wonder if he goes out and he still does the burnout.
he was the Matthew
Wonder how many
McConaughey. He was your Matthew McConaughey in your, what was the name of that movie? Dazed and Confused. We had a guy too. We all used to park in front of Arvest Bank and chill out. And I'm not going to say his name, but this dude would show up that was like 7 years older than us and kind of mack on all the girls.
Okay, yeah, this guy would do that too.
We're like, what? And then he would pull out because, he had to go to work the next day.
Yeah.
He would leave early.
4174 Mantis, if you guys had a Matthew McConaughey that would hang out with you. Yeah, it was kind of creepy though, think about it, because I think this guy was 7 or 8 years older than us.
Yeah, I keep getting older and they all stay the same
Oh, that's
age.
right.
All right.
The line. So anyway, I just thought that, I don't know why I want to tell you guys that, but it was kind of cool
I
because
love
it's like
it.
he was still stuck there.
Yeah, he's
that was
still
his
there.
place.
It's kind of, dude, come on.
Yeah.
You're still here?
Hey, I'm not even crapping on the guy. He likes that store. I mean, he found something he liked. How many people go through life looking for things they like? I mean, he found a place he likes to be.
I was born to play gambling in the back of the Quick Stop. That's what I do. And every once in a while, I go get a soda drink.
Then I'll make the light go out with my burnouts. Yeah.
It's awesome.
Anyway, it was good times.
I remember being a teenager and being out there and showing off like that. And
Oh, yeah.
Every time
Yeah.
you pulled out of somewhere, you had to, burn the tires off and smoke it up. And
Unless you had a Chrysler LeBaron, then you didn't do that so much.
well, not to brag, but I was driving a 77 El Camino.
Okay, there you go.
Not to brag.
There you go.
But then my buddy Seth, he had like his Warrior, like 4-wheeler
Sure.
in the back of his truck. So we started it up and he would run up and down the road in front of the bank while I was on the back of the 4-wheeler in the back of his truck, revving it up. Ring, 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 ring. Because it was like 4-stroke or whatever.
They were
Yeah.
so cool.
No, I was too cool for school. That's why I got all the ladies. So anyway,
Good thing you didn't go through a low drive-through, right?
bonk. Hit your head on that thing.
I guess that'd be pretty low.
That was their version of Teen Wolf on the roof of van.
It was.
That's right. The great scene, by the way.
Dude, my friend Jason, I'll just end with this and then we'll end the episode. My friend Jason pulled up behind one night in a lover's lane and he pulled up behind me because, that El Camino was like painted Goldilocks
Sure.
gold. And it was pretty like, I was the only dude in town with a gold 77 El Camino. So he saw me. And then like a couple days later when he saw me, he was like, what were you up to about 11:30 Saturday night? Then he told me that he'd seen me up in there, and I was like, oh, yeah, we were like working on algebra. So for like years and years and years, every time I saw him, he'd be like, you brushed up on your algebra lately?
I thought you were going to say that he shined the light at you. He's like, take off your pants.
They're already off, man. That's why I'm out here. Anyway,
That's funny.
they were off within 8 seconds. All right. Meanwhile, police interviewed and cleared dozens of suspects, but remained convinced that the people knew who their attacker was. Many of them eventually adapted the attitude of, you know what? If you want the guy to remain free, stay silent then. Stay silent. Stay silent. Let the guy go free. They were kind of just like, screw you then.
Man,
They were so convinced that the people, yeah, I know.
that's amazing.
The only good thing about this theory is that if they knew who he was, it had been personal and a targeted attack. That meant there was not a masked lunatic attacking people at random, and that meant people of Texarkana could rest easy. So the people of Texarkana, when they heard this theory, they latched onto it too because they were like, oh, yeah, of course, that's right. So we can still go out on lovers' lanes and live our lives as normally because this was a targeted attack.
They told themselves what they wanted to hear, probably. I wonder, they probably in the back of their mind thought, this could be some rando guy. Hopefully not. Yeah.
But we're just going to believe that it is.
It just seems over the top for a known, but maybe not. I mean, there are cases, obviously,
Yeah.
of known people that commit murders, but I don't know.
People are crazy. A month after the attack, Texas Ranger Stuart Stanley showed up to interview Jimmy. He pushed him hard to finally reveal who had attacked him. Just tell us, man. I know you know. I'm a Texas Ranger. Tell me.
That's pretty good.
I don't know. That's what
pretty
he
good.
said.
I feel like that's what he was sounding like.
Jimmy finally blew up on the Ranger, and he said even if it was his own grandmother, he'd want to see her hang after that beating. So he's like, I wouldn't cover up for anybody. Are you crazy? Look at me.
Yeah.
He insisted he had no enemies and ended the interview with one prophetic statement. He said this man is brutal. He's a potential killer. If you don't find him, the next thing you know, he's going to kill someone. And guess what? Just 2 days later, Jimmy would be proven right.
Wow.
And we're going to talk about that on the next episode.
Gotta wait a whole nother week. But hey, that is cool that he said that. Like, this guy's going to kill somebody.
Yeah.
You're wasting your time.
And then he did. And they didn't connect the two for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well, it's one of those things. I wonder if that's the whole, you hear something so many times, you start to believe it. So the public heard so many times that it was somebody they knew, so they just believed it. That's fact. Not going to think any more about it.
Yeah, and if there's anything I've learned in the past few years of my life, it's that most people believe whatever they want. Like
Sure.
whatever blows your dress up, whatever tickles your fancy. That's usually what people believe.
Well, it's like whatever their first impression was.
Yeah.
They just stuck with that.
And usually they'll stick to that. And then when evidence to the contrary comes up, they'll blow it off somehow or whatever. And people don't make any sense and they're all dumb. And I can't wait till AI takes us all out.
People are crazy.
Yeah.
You said
Bear
that
is
earlier.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, that's the first part of our Phantom Killer series there, man. We got a few to go.
So quick question before we end this. Do you know when they do the if they still do it? They used to do a festival where they would show the movie at night in the park.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It has to be probably around the anniversary of one of these murders.
Yeah, I would think so.
Which took place.
Or in the sun, probably warmer months for sure.
Yeah,
but
maybe so.
Hopefully not summer because they're further south than we are. And our summer, well, of course, we haven't had it too bad, but now we're having it bad.
Yeah, you know what? We need to look that up. And I'll tell you this right now. I'll tell you this.
Tell me. I mean, the whole point of a podcast is tell me this.
I know. I'm like, you guys listening? Are you listening? Yeah, we're listening, man. We've been listening. If that has not occurred yet, we need to go down there. Like if it's going to be in a month or two, guess what? We just found our next podcast trip.
Yep. We need to take more of those for sure.
And the podcast trips are a magical thing because I can be like, hey, I'm driving for 5 hours away and I won't be home for a day or two. And my wife would be like, what the hell's wrong with you? And then I'll say, it's for the podcast. And then she'll say, okay, cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just be careful. Don't overuse that. It's for the podcast.
It's for the podcast.
Yeah. So use that as like you're playing Monopoly, you have the get out of jail free card.
Yeah.
You have it tucked away.
God bless her.
Like, should I use it now? Oh, wait a second. I got a lot of properties. I can make some money while I'm in jail. Anyway. So yeah. So that's good. We'll go for another one for sure.
So there are several more attacks. This thing gets way in the weeds. We're going to go through basically almost each attack has its own episode. And then we're going to end this thing with a few suspects. None that good, in my opinion. But
the Zodiac.
It was the Zodiac, man. We talked about that with somebody else.
Yeah.
But we'll get to all that. So stick with us. And thank you for listening. 5 years. Happy anniversary, you guys.
Happy anniversary.
You complete me. I love you. Good night.
Let me tell you about some fellas I know, named Ivan, Sam, and Joe. They got themselves a little podcast, you know. And they talk about everything under the sun that they find interesting, spooky, or fun. And they sure ain't trying to impress no one. The remedy to too much time on your answers. Take a little listen to the dawn of Mantis. They talk about killers, monsters, and cults, French maids from hell, disappeared folks. Occasionally throw in a few dad jokes. They try to make every story extra nice by adding their own ginger spice. Not one time or two, but thrice. The remedy to too much time on your hands is take a little listen to the dawn of Manti. Now I'm sure these fellas will be around for quite a spell, 'cause there sure ain't no shortage of stories to tell, 'cause this old world's as weird as hell. But hell, even if nobody listened, you know they'd maintain a fine disposition, 'cause shooting the breeze is kind of their mission. The remedy to too much time on your hands is take a little listen to the dawn of Manti.